You're listening to the Cyberwire Network, powered by N2K.
On this episode of Only Malware in the Building, Selena, Keith, and Dave enter the chaotic world of digital threats to uncover the myths, mysteries, and malware hiding in plain sight. This week, they'll be putting 3 long-standing assumptions to the test: that small organizations aren't worth the attacker's time.
Aha! Now we're getting somewhere.
That artificial intelligence is fundamentally changing how attackers operate, making them faster, smarter, and harder to stop.
You've got to be kidding me!
And that once a hacker is identified, law enforcement can simply step in and make an arrest.
Well, that's one way to do it.
Who are your hosts? Keith Malarski, Master of Malware Analysis. Selena Larson, Sleuth of Social Engineering. And Dave Bittner, the recognized cyber voice of reason who insists on doing vocal warm-ups before every interview.
Me, mini, mamo, la, 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 la.
Combined, they bring over 134 years of cyber experience.
Wow!
Enough to have seen it all, or at least most of it.
Am I Adam or am I Jamie?
They don't just investigate malware, they uncover it. They outsmart it, and sometimes they even make it wish it had never existed. This is Only Malware in the Building.
Hello to all our listeners. You are listening to Only Malware in the Building. This is a very special and fun episode with myself, your host, Selena Larson, here with my co-hosts, Dave Bittner and Keith Malarski, and we are going to be myth-busting today. I feel like 50% of my job is myth-busting anyway. So I don't know about you guys, but, being an explainer of things tends to go hand in hand with maybe this isn't quite what you think it is. So yeah. I'm really excited for this. Dave, what is the first myth that you're going to bust for us?
Well, before we dig into that, I do want to echo on what you just said there, which is that particularly with like friends and family, I try not to be the guy who says, well, actually, right? Because there's nothing I hate more in cybersecurity than smug superiority.
Dave, do you use the line from the original Mythbusters, I reject your reality and substitute my own when they're asking you to do that?
Yes, whenever possible. Whenever possible.
That's really not smug at all. So truly just the exact vibes you would be going for when trying to explain something to somebody.
Yeah. I was at a conference recently, and I had to leave on the last day of the conference. The speaker was Adam Savage from Mythbusters, but I had to catch my flight, so I didn't get to meet him, and I was really bummed because I'm a big fan.
Are you today's Adam Savage?
I wouldn't claim that, but I certainly do plenty of myth busting myself, both on our shows and in real life. So. All right, well, let's jump into it then. I will start things off, and my myth is small organizations aren't targets. That is my myth. It is not true.
Do you hear this a lot, Dave?
Well, what I hear is, why would anybody be interested in me? Right? I don't have anything. I don't have any wealth. All I have is a small company. We just, we're a small mom and pop shop. Why would anyone be interested in us?
Until they are.
Of course, until they are, and that's the myth. I mean, you have anything of value, you're a target. And everybody, every organization, and every individual has some amount of money. And I think we forget that what might be a smaller amount of money to us here on our side of the Atlantic or the Pacific, that might be a much larger amount of money in terms of affecting someone's life to someone in a different part of the world. So they may be more motivated to come after what we consider to be a small amount of money because it's not small to everybody.
Yeah, and I think one of the things, too, is that hackers aren't sitting around saying, okay, I'm only going to go after companies with big budgets. Everything is more done on to scale. They're just throwing nets out there and seeing what's open. Not every attack is some secret bespoke attack with a 0-day trying to get into, Joe's TV shop. I mean, it is, they're scanning for vulnerabilities and they're looking for targets of opportunity. And, these smaller organizations probably don't have the most sophisticated cyber defense. So that makes them more vulnerable and more easy prey, in my opinion.
Well, and one of the things that makes small organizations very valuable to cyber attacks and cyber criminals is that they can adopt their persona. So think of your local coffee shop, right? Maybe it's just mom and pop owned local coffee shop. Well, they have suppliers. They have to get their coffee beans. They're sourcing it from somewhere. They have to get their paper plates, their napkins, their coffee machines. They might be working with larger bakeries to get the croissant, which is my dog's favorite treat, into their stores, right? If they sell, bottled water, that's, maybe they're partnering with a larger vendor for that. So all of that information lives in their inboxes. And if a threat actor can take over Joe's coffee shop at gmail.com, then they could potentially reach out to all of their different suppliers or, taking over their brand or their Microsoft O365 and sending out a lot of social engineering to try and convince these larger suppliers that might be a little bit more profitable for them to engage with our content, and then do something called ATO jumping, which is account takeover jumping. So they compromise one account just to get to another one. And I think that, thinking of some of these smaller organizations, like to your point, Dave, when you mentioned why would I possibly be a target? I don't have anything interesting. It's like, well, you have data, and data is always very interesting. And if you can build a persona, if you can leverage an existing persona to sort of further burrow into more profitable organizations, that can be a big win and a big windfall for a cyber attacker.
Right. And you may also have a customer who is a big target. You may not be the rich person, but you may have in your contact list the rich person who's more likely to engage with an email that comes with someone they know, which is you, if your email gets compromised.
A venture capitalist funded coffee shop.
There you go.
Yes.
I was thinking of another example that I remember, which is where a pastor at a church got his email compromised. And I think it's important to think of organizations aren't just businesses, right? Organizations, it could be your church, it could be your synagogue, it could be your club, the hobbyists. So all those things any membership organization is a potential target because one person gets in and they have everyone else's email addresses. And those people are going to be primed to accept and to trust communications coming from someone who is part of the club.
That's actually a great thing. I was thinking, what clubs am I a part of? Swim club. These sort of extracurricular activities. And I'm just thinking, I live in Washington, D.C. How many of these extracurricular clubs for sports or kickball or softball or whatever, or trivia at your local bar. How many interesting emails and information can you get from a DC localized activity that isn't, to Dave's point, not a business? But yeah, I think that's an interesting thought.
And I think when you look at statistically, BEC, which is kind of what a lot of these actors would be doing, kind of what you were explaining, Selena, of doing diversion of payments and things like that. It's literally the number one cybercrime problem out there. It is the most prevalent cybercrime problem impacting the most financial dollars. So for people to say that, well, hey, I'm small, I'm not a target, it's really the absolute opposite, because those are the people that are getting targeted, that are easily fooled and can do the diversions. So I'd like to say that this one's probably busted.
Well, side note, if we're also thinking about organizations in general, fraudsters love students. And they love going after .edu accounts, in particular for advanced fee fraud. So students are looking for part-time, easy money, easy jobs to do in between work. And they love targeting them with, oh, would you like to do this like 12-hour-a-week job? Sometimes it's something like modeling clothes for Instagram, or maybe it's something like just doing data entry or something, these sort of like easy kind of college type jobs. And then you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to send you a check to buy all your equipment. So it's like the advanced fee fraud. And so they, take a picture of the check and then they buy all this stuff from the proprietor with that fake check, essentially. They get the money and the student's out of luck. So that's a really common thing too, where again, like the student doesn't have a ton of money, but if you're adding up a bunch of different advanced fee fraud over time, targeting students looking for extra cash, 20 people with $500 is quite a lot for a lot of people.
The last point I'll make about this is that I think sometimes this mindset leaves people to not take some of the precautions that they would otherwise take. So they're thinking, nobody's going to be after me. I don't have anything at risk, so they don't bother with multi-factor authentication, or they reuse passwords because they just think they don't have a bullseye painted on their back, but they do. They have an extra one because they are proven to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. This is a great tee up for my myth to bust, which is artificial intelligence and LLMs are making hackers smarter.
You don't say, Selena.
I know. It's making me smarter. I know that for sure.
Oh, yes, definitely. I mean, yes, anyone who tuned into our previous episode about AI, all things AI, that turned into a philosophical debate about what is art and what is humanity. If you didn't listen to that episode, definitely tune in. It was it was a really fun one, I think, and a little different than your typical cyber podcast. But one thing that I hear a lot, and this is also come to the fore with Mythos and OpenAI's latest like cyber defender bone scanning or bone discovery tools. There's this idea that, well, now everyone has AI and LLMs and attackers are up leveling. They're getting so much better. Their malware is better. Their hacking is better. And, all these resources are now available to them. But I think that we're really missing a huge point of this, which is Dave's point. And that's like organizations already aren't doing the basics. You're not going to need to discover an ODE in network appliance to breach most organizations. And while it might make attacks happen faster, or it might make them be able to sort of script and automate some, BEC or social engineering and targeting and stuff like that, there's already automation tools that exist for making hackers get better and faster. But it's still, the problem still lies that organizations aren't doing the minimum. And there's a big gap between, the general public even's level of understanding about cybersecurity, about cyber attacks, and the reality of how these things happen. And I think that we really kind of got lost in the sauce a little bit with a lot of AI buzz and hype and everything, and like, oh my gosh, like Mythos is going to change the world, and like it's cool, it's interesting, and it would be really cool if there is some sort of like automated vuln discovery. But at the same time, I think that there are still a lot of like outstanding questions, like what happens to a SOC analyst when they have a million CVEs that have been published with a security team? It's like, oh, we have to address all these CVEs now because they've been found and they have to be patched now, and they're now public information. So there's going to have to be like a refactoring and a rethinking of how we're actually like approaching cybersecurity. And like, I hope it's a net positive, but I'm still really worried about the basics and how we are talking about cybersecurity and artificial intelligence and how it's changing, security or making threat actors better, but forgetting about this very important piece, which is the people that are using technology.
Well, if AI is not making attackers smarter, what is it making them?
I think more efficient more efficient.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree? I mean, it's not that they're coming up with, new, like Selena said, new 0 days because, they're using some LLM, but it is just making them a little bit more efficient. It does make them look a little bit more polished, maybe in a phishing lore, where you're not going to have this broken English like, you've seen in the past. But it's just really all efficient and making them a little bit more organized. But then at the same time, I think what we talked about a couple episodes ago was, our defenders are also using AI, as well. So they're countering, that. You could also make the argument, the absolute opposite argument, is that AI is making cyber hackers dumber because they are relying on AI tools. So we can argue that whether that's a myth or not here too.
Keith, I'm so glad that you brought that up because I recently submitted a talk somewhere that AI fish swap is ruining my life. So, and I've been wanting to kind of talk about this and do a presentation on it because we're seeing so much bad attacks, like so much boring, like people used to have pride in their work. What happened? What happened to this? So for example, device code phishing as a service is something that has become really exploded in the last, really even like the last few weeks. There's been a lot of like publications and stuff about it. And some of my actors have pivoted to using device code phishing as opposed to MFA, AITM phishing. But like some of these people...
Wait. What is that? What's device code phishing?
So device code phishing is basically the threat actor will send you a malicious link saying, oh, you have a new document to review or whatever. You'll get kicked over to a website that gives you a device code. This is actually a legitimately generated device code through Microsoft's OAuth authentication that then you add to your Microsoft O365 to like sort of approve an app, essentially. So approve access to this application, essentially. So it's basically like phishing, but it's just device code phishing. And historically, what's actually really interesting is historically device code phishing wasn't super effective because when you would get an email with a device code already generated by the threat actor, it was only valid for 15 minutes because that's how Microsoft's authentication process works. And you would even see in the emails like, please log in within 15 minutes and put in this device code. But now they're doing real-time device code generation with these device code as a service phishing kits. And so that you lose that sort of 15-minute window. And it's an interesting improvement to the overall technique of device code phishing. But the flip side of it is a lot of these kits that are being created, not all of them, but a lot of the kits that are being created, and this goes for malware, this goes for any type of phishing, they are so badly vibe coded that they've actually left flaws and vulnerabilities in their own tooling so that threat actors or so threat researchers can basically look at that and say, okay, well, I see your full backend. I see how to access this panel. I see the information that you don't want me to see. I see a lot of like sensitive information that you would probably want hidden from researchers. And then they are too, like threat actors, maybe, oh, I'm going to log into this panel and steal all these creds that is just like left open and accessible to someone who knows how to, modify the code slightly in their own HTML. So I think, Keith, you make a great point that it is kind of making attackers like a little bit dumber. And now what we're seeing too is like this rise of like automated tooling. So like the sort of like landing pages will look really slick or full cycle or the full attack chain or the click fix looks really great. But the initial lure is terrible. Like I've seen emails that are empty. There's nothing in them. And they're just like, here's an attachment. That's like, so I'm just like, you're not even trying on like the social engineering piece. You're just fully relying on this whole other like vibe coded component of your attack chain, but forgot the important part, which is to get somebody to click on something.
To click on it. Yeah.
Still a numbers game.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm curious. Have you guys seen anything that, I think we're still in this like squishy phase of like, I think it'll ultimately be a net positive, but I think that things are just, really crazy right now. And there's a lot of like FUD, like fear, uncertainty, and doubt, I think, around things about AI. And I don't know. I'm curious if you have seen, like what you've seen, Keith, to make you think that, oh, this is actually making attackers dumber.
Yeah, I just think, kind of what you're just seeing out there is that they're just relying on it too much, and when you go to LinkedIn now, let's just say, I'm going to just use a real world example. When you go to LinkedIn and you see a lot of posts, you could almost tell like everything is written by AI. Because some of the people that I know that are writing these long dissertations on LinkedIn, I know they can't write like that. So I'm not naming any names, but I'm just saying. So at the same time, so it becomes a crutch in that, so now if the attackers know, well, hey, I could use AI to craft this or do that, then that becomes a crutch, and they're not actually spending the time, like you said, to actually do the lore right, and putting that time and effort into it to make it, ingenious or whatever like that. So I think it becomes a crutch, and then they just, you're not having that, what's the word I'm looking for? That human touch that made some of the things so neat before. I just think we're going to see a little bit of a downgrade of things, in my opinion. So, well,
and it's also true too that like everyone's just kind of using it in the same ways, right? Like we're all being enabled to do the same things. Like, okay, I was able to vibe code like a really helpful script to help me do my job better and faster, but I like knew I knew what I was doing. I knew the APIs I needed. You had that sort of like basic knowledge. And then like, this is just like one part of my job. Like I'm not like fully automating my whole like life or whatever. And so I think it's really interesting to kind of think about the, like, we're like when I always want to ask when people are like, oh my gosh, this is going to be absolutely game changing. I want to be like, how are you using it?
Yeah.
Like how is it being used in your organization or with your teams or whatever? Cause like, think about how that is happening. And then you can just say, bad guys are probably trying it too.
Yeah.
Well,
Dave, what do you think from because you talk to everybody, a lot more than Selena and I. Like, what do you
just live in our little holes with our
exactly.
Buddies.
We're in our bubbles. So I mean, what do you hear? Yeah, what are you hearing from your guests and and your listeners on that?
I'm first of all, let me ask you this: don't you think that eventually it's going to be really hard to tell if something's been written by AI or not? It's just going to get better. It's not going to get worse.
Oh, it's going to get better. Absolutely. I think so. I mean, it's all going to, and then we're going to become numb to it as well. Because we're just going to be so used to just seeing AI production that we're really not going to be able to tell the difference or really care really at that point, I think.
Right. We'll submit. It's, that's interesting. I mean, one of the things, and this was probably a year ago now, or even more, when these were still relatively new, one of the things that I asked it to do as an experiment was I said, I want you to write about this topic, and I want you to write it in the style of CyberWire podcast host Dave Bittner. And I asked it that because I knew that the LLMs have ingested thousands of hours of transcripts from our shows. And so it knows the way I speak. And sure enough, it did it.
That's amazing.
And I learned that, what was kind of a little disconcerting was that I learned it highlighted a few tics that I have when I speak and the things that I say. Like generally I don't say guys or gals or whatever. I say folks. So I'll say like, how should folks protect themselves against this, right? Because I just try to be gender neutral because I'm a good person. And so it was peppering its writing with the little tics that I use, that I have. And I was like, oh, this is scary.
It just accentuated it. Yeah.
Yeah. I do feel like all these things are just like brighter. Like it's just like, okay, you're going to tell it something and then it's just going to like highlight things and just make it more colorful and make it like brighter and more punchy. Right. And like, it just makes
amplifies it.
It's an amplifier. And the thing is too, is like when you're talking to it with malware or code, we have done a lot of work on my team to sort of try and like not break these things, but really work with it. The trouble with these things is it will always say you're right. So if you don't actually know what you're doing, you can very, very easily fall down a hole of creating something that is almost right, but does have flaws or does have issues as a threat actor, because it's always going to tell you like, that's a great idea. That's definitely what it is. This is how we do it. And it won't necessarily, if you don't know how to debug something, if you don't know how to find bugs in the code or tell it to debug things, it very quickly becomes a yes man, essentially. It's just saying, absolutely, let's do it. And so I think that's also part of what I find really interesting is that it can be used very effectively for sure, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's making people smarter, because it's just giving them more resources to play with and mess with. And if you don't know how to interpret these things, and if you don't know how to, correctly create a web shell or something, or correctly secure your website and the malware panel that you're developing, or correctly add like obfuscation in your code, like it's not, you don't know how to tell it to do that. And so I think like, it's like the piece of it that I think is really interesting is that yes, it's making maybe making attackers faster, more organized, maybe potentially more structured. There's that whole like software defined development that, we've seen a lot of articles on, but like in the grand scheme of things, I wouldn't say smarter. And I'm really interested to see where this goes, especially with something like the vuln discovery stuff.
I did an interview with a threat researcher yesterday, and his research involved doing prompt injection with an AI, and the LLM had all kinds of guardrails built in to try to prevent someone from doing prompt injection. And what this researcher found was that if he yelled at the LLM, if he berated it, if he put it down, if he insulted it, it was so eager to please him that was a way around the guardrails.
Oh my gosh.
That's what I said. Right? He just wore it down. And eventually it let him pass the guardrails because it so much wanted to please him.
Okay, I understand that he's a researcher, but what does that say about society if everyone is yelling at their AI tools to just make them agree with them?
The funny part is later in the interview, he said that he always uses good manners when talking to the LLMs. Like he always says please and thank you because he figures, when they do come for us, he wants to be one of the ones they allow to live.
I love that line.
I'm going to flip the script. I'm going to be so mean to the robots so that they'll do away with me first.
Yeah.
I don't want our robot overlords. I'm out.
Okay, right. You want to be vaporized. You're heading to the blast's location.
Yes. I'm going to the moon with the NASA astronauts.
Fair. Sure.
There you go.
Sure. Why not?
We'll be right back.
And now a word from our sponsor, ThreatLocker, the powerful zero-trust enterprise solution that stops ransomware in its tracks. ThreatLocker Protect is the core ThreatLocker product focused on endpoint security, designed to prevent unauthorized software from running, control how applications interact, and manage access to storage devices. Its building blocks are allow listing, ring fencing, and network control. Allow listing is a deny-by-default software that makes application control simple and fast. Ring fencing is an application containment strategy, ensuring apps can only access the system resources they truly need to function. Network control locks down access by port, source IP, or dynamically with ACLs that automatically update as IP addresses change. Shut out cybercriminals with world-class endpoint protection from ThreatLocker. And we thank ThreatLocker for sponsoring Only Malware in the Building. Keith, what's your myth?
All right, my myth is once you get, this is for law enforcement, or a lot of people think about law enforcement, once you get a hacker identified, law enforcement can just go and arrest them.
Yes.
Have you guys heard that?
Yes.
Yes.
I've tried this.
Yes.
Can I do, so here's a story. When I was about 10 years old, my bicycle got stolen. out of my backyard. And of course I was upset and there were tears and all that kind of thing. And I said to my parents, well, we have to call the police, right? And my parents said, yes, of course you have to call the police. So we called the police. And in my mind, I was expecting, police were going to come. They're going to start fingerprinting. It's going to be a hard target search. They're going to be interrogating all the neighbors and all that kind of stuff, right? No, the police were just like, yeah, you got a serial number? All right, we'll let you know if it shows up. Well, I lost a little bit of my innocence that day. and I feel like that's where we are with online scams. If you call police, they're just going to be like, yeah, sorry, we can't get anything. Can't get it back. Sorry. It's just gone.
Yeah, it's kind of, there was a Big Bang episode that was kind of like the similar thing, where Sheldon is like talking to the police. Well, aren't you going to go out and arrest them? And then they were laughing and they just gave him the thing for the insurance. But
right.
Yeah, yes. I mean, so this is like a big myth, because like we get a lot of researchers, obviously, and I'm sure people on your team, Selena and Dave, people that you talk to, they're investigating certain scams out there, and through their investigations, they identify maybe who's behind it. And you have certain things that, all indication is that's probably the case. Why can't, the FBI or Secret Service or, another law enforcement agency just go out and arrest them? It's because it's just not that simple. Because just knowing who did it and being able to prove something in court are two totally different things. And especially when you're thinking about cyber attribution, when people are using all kinds of anonymization services and proxies and, and all of that, nicknames, and they're changing their nicknames and their Telegram handles and all that over the course of the years, how are you really proven that in court? So you could say, well, hey, even if you have an info stealer and, somebody's got self-infected with an info stealer and you go and you see a picture on that computer, you're thinking, well, that's probably the guy, but you can't prove that in court. So you really have to take a lot of steps. And there used to be like an old saying, Dave, maybe you remember, it's like if somebody was making things complicated, they were like, don't make a federal case out of it.
Yes.
Yes. So don't make
you loved that.
Yeah. But so on the opposite end is like, we have to make a federal case, so there's a lot that goes into things. And the other thing is, at least when I worked at the FBI and working with the U.S. attorneys, they always like to have any of their indictments what they call court ready. And when they mean court ready, is like, if we arrest somebody, they could go to trial that day and prove it. So it's not like what you see, like, a Law and Order where they're still building the case as they're in trial. Everything has to be locked up. And the other thing, when you think about it from a federal case standpoint, I can't remember what the statistic is, but it's like crazy where, when a federal case goes, it's like a 98, 97% conviction rate or plea. So you always got to make sure things are really lined up. And then you got to throw the other aspect in. A lot of our most important hackers are overseas. I would have loved to have a lot of U.S. hackers that you could go. That when you got people in Russia or China, just getting access to them just makes it so much difficult. Even if you have, a court-ready indictment where you could prove it, being able to get them is just a whole nother ball of wax.
Well, even in countries that are like, friendly or, you can extradite or they will cooperate, oftentimes there's just reasons why they don't. Maybe they're working on their own case against the person. Maybe they, just are, for whatever political reasons, law enforcement reasons, they just don't necessarily always want to cooperate. And I think too, the time scale, we talk about like geologic time, right? There's like government time. and I think, cyber is working in cyber time and technology is working at a very, very fast pace, but you have government time where the handcuffs happen. And let's just say that's not far away from geologic time.
Yeah, and I actually like to use an expression when talking about government bureaucracy. It's like watching the rotation of the Earth. You never see it. You never see it move, but every day it gets light and every day it gets dark. And that's kind of like it moves at that pace sometimes. And especially when you're like doing like when you think about like sending a mutual legal assistance treaty, even to a country that we have great relationships with. I mean, it takes just a month just to probably write and get that document out of the United States overseas, and this would be on a routine thing to let alone then for them to go and maybe do an image of a server, package up the evidence and send it back. It's just the timing of everything, like you said, Selena, it just goes slow.
Well, and also I think something that people don't really think about is the economics of it as well. So you need like funding to be able to work cases, and you need, the ability to do it, and the people that can be involved in the time for these people to actually work it. And especially, from a private sector perspective as well, right? Like it costs a lot of money to do lawsuits or to bring cases. And there's a cost benefit analysis that you always run on. Is it worth it to go against this guy? Or, is there better use of our time? And, we might not always agree with the decisions, because I think every single person who's ever been a victim of a crime thinks it's worth it to go after them. And, I do think that we can for sure improve. But on the flip side, when it works, it's great. And you have really big wins for sure. And I think, we've talked about it previously on the podcast that there's some fantastic, private sector law enforcement collaboration with the private sector as well. And so when it works, it works. And I actually think it's getting better. So maybe we will get one day to a point where someone's like, why don't we just go put handcuffs on this guy? And Keith's like, okay.
Yes.
But Keith, to your your point about the prosecutors, isn't there kind of a threshold where it's not really worth their time because they're so overworked? They have so many cases that would to them would be petty crime, is important to the person it happened to, but they've only got so much bandwidth themselves, right?
Oh, absolutely. So you think, let's just use Pittsburgh where I was at. We had a very aggressive U.S. attorney's office, from a cyber standpoint with some of the cases that we brought. We had, I think, if I'm correct, we had 3 U.S. attorneys that work cyber out of the U.S. attorney's office here. So you have, you have three of those, and they carry a caseload. And that's between multiple agencies, between FBI and Secret Service and HSI and Postal Inspection Service, maybe DEA as well. So there's all those different types of, agencies in the case. So you have to have a threshold on what you're going to investigate. I know, like in New York, some white collar, like if you were just working white collar crime, I think the threshold, it was at least 5 million many years ago. It's probably over 20 million in losses for them to even look at, a white collar crime. So it's the same with cyber. So you got to kind of prioritize, like what Selena was saying, where are we getting the most impact here? What is the most loss? And that's where we're going to throw our resources. Because again, when you're doing these big takedowns and you're going after these big organizations, there's a lot of people involved. It's not just like usually one U.S. attorney and one case agent. There's multiple people that you're throwing resources on. So you really have to prioritize, like you said, Dave.
Yeah. All right. Myth busted.
We will be right back after this quick break. Do we want to do one more myth? A fire round? One last fire round myth?
Can we say no? Go ahead, Selena. What do you got for us?
Well, let's see. What was the one that we had, Keith? The last one.
I think it was the nation state stuff that you mentioned.
Nation state hackers are always better and more advanced and scarier than cybercrime. Everyone knows that's my soapbox, and it's definitely not true. And as we sort of democratize, as the landscape is being democratized, as cyber criminals make a lot more money, the best cyber criminals are definitely on par with espionage threat actors. And honestly, sometimes state actors just aren't that good either.
Don't you think this is this is a mythology that's grown on its own also, because so often when a major organization gets popped, they will send out a press release that says, clearly we were attacked by nation state actors, so there's nothing we could have done against an opponent with such skills. And then like 3 months later, it turns out it's, Bobby Brady in his parents' basement who was the one who popped him. And time again, that's what happens. But I think through these press releases, we've given this mystique to nation state actors when, I don't know, my perception is if there's anybody who's not interested in you, it's probably a nation state actor. Like they got their thing. Yeah. They're not interested in you.
That actually would be the first myth of yours, Dave.
Bring it home. Yeah.
We circle back. They're not interested in you.
Call back. Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess on that note, we can probably wrap it up.
Sounds good to me.
All righty. Thank you so much for myth busting with me today. If you have any myths, actually, if any of our listeners have any myths that they hate to hear, comment on any of our social posts when we publish this. Let's take a look at some of the myths, and maybe we'll reply with our hot takes or give you a shout out on the next episode with your favorite myth. But yeah, thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Dave, Keith, anything else? Or should I say Adam, Jamie, anything else?
Oh, that's interesting. Am I Adam or am I Jamie? Keith, which one are, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if I look good in a beret. So
yeah, that's tough to pull off. Absolutely.
I feel like you could pull it off though, Dave.
We could both be Adam. All right. Well, whatever. I'm happy.
If anyone on our podcast can pull off a beret, it's definitely Dave and his dips.
There you go. All right. We'll leave it there.
Thanks so much, everybody. See you next time.
And that's Only Malware in the Building, brought to you by N2K Cyberwire. In a digital world where malware lurks in the shadows, we bring you the stories and strategies to stay one step ahead of the game. As your trusty digital sleuths, we're unraveling the mysteries of cybersecurity, always keeping the bad guys one step behind. We'd love to know what you think of this podcast. Your feedback ensures we deliver the insights that keep you ahead in the ever-evolving world of cybersecurity. If you like the show, please share a rating and review in your favorite podcast app. This episode was produced by Liz Stokes, mixing and sound design by Trey Hester, with original music by Elliot Peltzman. Our executive producer is Jennifer Iben. Peter Kilby is our publisher.
Thank you to ThreatLocker, the powerful zero-trust enterprise solution that stops ransomware in its tracks, for sponsoring Only Malware in the Building. Visit threatlocker.com.